G'day, mate. What's your name?
G'day, mate. My name's Daniel Connell.
Daniel Connell. What do you do, Daniel?
I do stand-up comedy.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Crowdworkcast. My name's Andrew Barnett. Thank you so much for joining me. My guest today, Daniel Connell, absolute champion, super funny guy. If you haven't seen Daniel do comedy or heard of him, check him out. I cannot recommend him highly enough. Really funny guy. He's currently touring his show, I'm Always Sore, so go check that out. You can find all those details, though, on his website, Daniel Connell Comedy. Check him out on YouTube. He's got a couple of specials up there. Daniel Connell Comedy on YouTube, and obviously Instagram is probably the best place to keep up to date, so give him a follow. Once again, he's Daniel_Connell_comedy on that. If you are enjoying the show, please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and give me a follow, Andrew Barnett Comedy on Instagram. I will be announcing a few shows probably in the next couple of weeks, just in the process of organising that, but hopefully I'll be have some good news for Brisbane, Canberra, Newcastle and Sydney, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, other than that, this is my chat with Daniel Connell. You've done more than just stand-up, though. You've written and stuff for TV and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I guess I just say stand-up comedy because that is predominantly, I guess. But I've done a little bit of TV writing. I wrote for The Project from about 2016 to 2019, 2020-ish. And
the glory years of the project.
The glory years, of course. And then stand-up kind of really became my main income and prominence, so I put all my effort into that. I quit any sort of other writing jobs I had. And
is that the one you're most passionate about?
By far, yeah. Writing for myself is so much more interesting than writing for anyone else, I find.
Who was the easiest to write for in your project days? Like, did you have a...
Peter Hellier by far, yeah. So he was the main one. You wouldn't, he was there 90% of the time that I was there, so... And he's really good to deal with, and he'd come in and sit with us in the afternoons. And when I started, I didn't know how to write a joke for someone else as good as myself. I was writing the gags for myself, and then over time you realise what his voice is and sort of how to write for someone else. And but in saying that, it's still not fully him because it's PG and it's news time and.
It's a interesting format, that show. When you look at how it started, it was much more supposed to be lighthearted and jokey.
Much more comedy heavy. Even my years there, it was really, you'd probably get 6 or 7 topics to joke about, and you could write as many jokes as you want on each one. And then by the end, there was per episode in 6 segments, there was maybe 2, maybe 3 things to joke about. Like, it just, comedy was really getting, and if anything serious happened in the day, or they needed to cover any big stories, comedy was always the first thing to get the flick. So you'd write all day things that you were pretty happy with that might be said, and then again, you could write 50 jokes and Pete wouldn't say one. It was totally up to him on the fly if he'd use them or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'd just use his own stuff, if he had a busy day, he'd use a couple of hours, it just depended. But we're also doing social media replies and,
you do that as well.
All that's incorporated in it, so.
Social media replies for something like The Project, I imagine, would bring out some interesting folks.
Oh, you get exactly what you're thinking is exactly what we replied to. Thankfully, it was just a lot of copy and paste and, just call this number or whatever.
Standard stuff. What percentage was people, probably in the old days it would have been someone sitting down and writing a letter to the station about the inappropriateness, and what percentage was it people basically saying you guys weren't funny?
Most of it is just hate, like it's just for someone or something was said. Very rarely do people. It was more of a complaints line, the way that and it wouldn't be heat. Like I know that show gets a bad rap from times, but it wouldn't be tons and tons of hate mail. But it was if you got 50 messages a day, probably 35 were like telling you something wrong with the previous show, and 15 were like talking about like other 10 shows, like talking about Bondi Vet or something. You're like, no, this isn't the message. This is how you get in touch with the Bondi Vet. Go to a different thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an eye opener. It was interesting to see how TV runs and how they make it, and all the segment stuff, and how many staff there is there and producers, and it was a cool place to work for that 3 years.
It is. TV's weird like that, like interesting like that. When you first go into it, especially, you realise how much goes into stuff that you at home have always just taken for granted, and will flick the channel if it even gets slightly. You're like, oh, you don't realise how hard like 40 people worked.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's totally. Oh man, that's that'd be an interesting show to work for, I think, at the time, especially. But so with what else fascinates me about having to do the replies is it's like that old Dimitri Martin joke about how graffiti's like never non-committal, it's always super passionate. Like no one ever comments on anything on social media like, oh, this was fine.
It's never enjoyed the show, or
Hey guys, keep up the good work. No attaboys.
No, none of that. Oh, you know what? 1 in 100 would be.
Yeah,
loved it. But people who love it and who have a life don't reply to that. Reply to that stuff. You just enjoy it and
move on with your
cup
life.
of tea and have some dessert or whatever.
Exactly. So how long have you been doing stand up?
I did my first gig in like 2009, so coming up pretty close to 14 years. Knocking on the door of 14 years.
I think similar. That's real similar to me. I think November 2009 was my very first gig.
Yeah, right.
And then Raw Comedy. That year.
Yeah, I did Green Faces.
Oh, Green Faces.
In Canberra,
Nice.
It was sort of my first crack at it.
Were you living in Canberra at that stage?
I was, yep. So I'd done a few years in Jindabyne up in the Snowy, originally from Bateman's Bay, a few years in Snowy Mountains, chefing up there, and then moved to Canberra and always wanted to try it. And then I saw the ad for Green Faces, thinking it was a first-timers competition, that everyone there would be doing it for the first time.
Not at all.
No, and I was the only one that was doing their first gig there.
Oh, wow.
On the night, and the others thought I was a lunatic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they'd all done 12 months, 18 months. And I was doing 10 minutes of material I'd written. Yeah,
because Green Faces A-List used to run that, didn't they?
Yeah.
So I remember they bring people down from Sydney to
everywhere.
Canberra.
They do. So I lived in Canberra, so I did the Canberra heat, but there was heats from every state, and they would get everyone from every state to Canberra. Yeah. Every Thursday night for, I don't know, 8 or 9 weeks in a row, and then a final with all the winners from each heat.
Because I remember it was something that in Sydney, the thing was, they have to sort of almost ask you to do it. You had to have been doing a bit of open micing. Someone's seen you going, this person's all right, we should... Yeah. And then give you an opportunity, because they'd put you up and everything in Canberra. So there's all these people who've at least been around it for a bit, looking at you, who's like, oh no, it's my first go. How did the first one go?
Oh, the terror. I still think, I've never been so scared to do something in my life. Like, I've been nervous at points, but I've never been so. Just the thoughts going through my head to a point where you could hardly move. Like, you got to remember how to. Yeah. You had to open a door to go on stage, and I couldn't, twist the knob. And I'd done, I'd written jokes in the previous sort of 3 or 4 years, thinking that they were. And then I went to my book, ready for my first gig, and it was all just trash. So I basically had to write it in the month leading up to it, and I just sort of did topical stuff. And it was 10 minutes, and I was put on last out of the 8 people, so I had to wait all night for my spot.
So everything's against you. For starters, 10 minutes as opposed to 5, which is what most, like at that stage, like everyone, you get the open spot, it's a 5-minute spot, don't go over it.
And I probably did 8, I reckon. And 1 or 2 of the bits got, one bit got a really big laugh.
And, do you remember it? What was it about?
Oh, it was about. I did a bit about. Remember that apple bottom jeans boots with the fur?
Yes,
It was like a joke about that, and with Queanbeyan, which was the town next to Canberra, and its Ugg boots and tracky dacks, and it was all kind of. That song was big at the time, so I made the comparisons there. That got a pretty good laugh. And then I did a joke about fucking someone with my foot, which to say that in a sentence like that doesn't sound that amazing. but I've done it. I did it in a festival show a couple of years ago just to say this is how bad this was, and it would always get a big laugh, but in that's pretty fucked.
Well, knowing your style, your sensibility, like the way your comedy is, that's not really that's not a topic I would immediately link to Daniel Connell now.
That was just a untried thinking what I thought was funny at the time.
That's it's funny, yes, especially when you start. It is that real thing of just throwing everything at the wall, oh, this could be funny.
Yeah.
There's no thought about it's almost the purity of open micing where it's the only thing you're thinking about is this funny? Will people laugh? Not is this something I want to talk about? Is this
100%? Yeah, you don't start thinking that until about 6 or 7 years in, I reckon.
Yeah,
that you're purely just going for the laugh for 6 or 7 years, and I didn't know. I used to do longer stories and then little one-liners. I tried everything in those first few years, trying to work out what.
Yeah, who you want to be.
Yeah, and then it's funny. People are like, you got to find your voice on stage. And I'd always be like, no, you just got to be funny. But then as the years went, I was like, oh no, I get this now.
Yeah.
And now, when I'm writing on paper, I can see that my voice is saying it as I'm writing it. I know that how I'd say this, how I'd raise my voice here, or pause there.
So do you write longhand, or
you do? Yeah. I don't know. I have to. I find that I remember the best if it's written down. And then I used to take my book to the gig, but now if I'm doing new stuff, I'll take a photo on my phone of the page.
Look at you!
And then just sit up the back and just have a little flick through.
No, I'm sort of the opposite. I got to dot point everything. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't longhand because as soon as I write longhand, I think it's when you when you were a kid and you had a pen pal and you'd read your letter back and that sounds like a smart guy. It's just a different voice in my head. Is the guy that is the longhand.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm a dot point guy.
Like beginning, middle, and end sort of.
Yeah, well,
multiple dots.
Multiple dots because I'll hit when I'm first writing it. It's I'll think, okay, this is the premise. This is how I get into it. So that's a dot, and then the next dot is hit that beat, hit that beat, hit that beat.
Yeah.
And then if there's so if you look at my notes, they look like the scrollings of a crazy man. But early when I'm trying to learn a new bit, it is it'll be the headline dot.
Yeah.
This is the premise.
Yeah.
See, and then. As it's almost like indentation. Hit that. You got to hit that, and then this is the next big dot. It's I do it in my phone a bit too now. Notes.
It's kind of similar. I'll always have a beginning, middle, and an end of the bit. So it's all written in full, but I don't always say to get to each bit. I don't always say exactly the same thing. I've always really tried never to say. Some people like to say things verbatim as they write them down or type them out.
Yep.
But I like to have the setup, just what it's about, a bit of juice in the middle, and then a solid punchline. But how I get to each bit is always just whatever I'm saying on the night.
Yeah, I think that's the way to stay in the moment. Though.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might as well be an actor who's learnt the script.
Yeah. So if I filmed a bit maybe 5 times, I think it would. I don't think I would say it exactly the same once. It would always have a few different words in there, or yeah.
If I film a bit, I immediately have and go, "Oh, that's it." I immediately have 4 tags. Yeah. The next day, I'm that's that bit.
Yeah, but I can't ad lib. I can't go up. Some people like to go up with an idea and just talk about it. I can't do that. I need to have. Even if it's brand new, it's got to have the punchline there, or some sort of thing I can get out on where I'm getting a laugh and it's stopping. I can't just go up and let it fizzle out to nothing.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. Like I've got to have the idea and at least one punchline. I can, if I'm working on new stuff, then there's a couple of rooms I'll go to do it, especially here in Sydney where it's small. That's the vibe where they'll let you muck around a bit.
Yeah.
I'll sit in that thing where I try and find it, but I've always got that punt. Okay, this is where I need to get to get out of this.
Yeah.
But I will do occasionally, like when you think you've got the out, and then you say it and you go, "That's not the out." I don't know how that ends yet.
Yeah.
We'll work it out.
Yeah.
Like that's So you're touring now, so that's why you're in Sydney, because you're Melbourne based.
Melbourne based. You've been there pretty much 2010. Yeah, so 13 years.
And so, was it the idea go down, get into comedy, or was
100%. I had sort of done a year in Canberra, and such a good little scene there. It was such a great place to start. But I did like 35 gigs in the first 12 months, and I thought that was a lot. But you could do that in a month if you want in Melbourne. So I'd had a lot to do with Sydney growing up. A lot of family up here. And I was like, I've only been to Melbourne once. I went down for the Melbourne Cup in 2005, Mackay Diva's third one.
Because you're a horse racing guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I used to be a bad punter. I had a bit of an issue with it and gave it away, but I still followed that sport a lot back in the day. I'd only been to Melbourne once. So I thought, had a mate in the army down there, only person I knew, and he was like, I got a spare room, come down. And after 6 months, I was pretty homesick. Like it was like starting all over again.
Yeah.
And my best 5 minutes in Canberra was not great amongst all these Melbourne comics. It stood out in Canberra, but it didn't do anything in
Melbourne's
in Melbourne.
A funny scene too, in that because there's so many people with TV work, so many very established comedians, that it is weird. Like you can turn up to a midweek gig and have some quite reasonably high profile comedians just there
all the time. You'd see these, all the people I'd watched growing up on galas and the telly on that. Back then there used to be a lot of comedy spots on your Hey Hayes and Rove and all that. They used to, so I knew all these people and just be on the same lineup doing my best 5 minutes.
It's intimidating.
It was really, but it was cool. And then I just sort of stuck it out. And then probably, I reckon it took a good 2, 3, 4 years, like 2014, 2015, of just going out. I was single then. I met my wife in 2013. So from 2010 to 2013, I was going out like 6 nights a week. Not gigging every night, but just trying to go to gigs to meet people, doing just the worst put together gigs, doing anything, just, racking up probably 300 gigs a year, I reckon. Those for just trying to get a toe in the door and get better.
Get the flying hours.
Yeah. And then I don't reckon I really got a hold of it and started to really make progress till about 2017, I reckon, when I really started to notice a few more doors opening up and got a TV spot on the gala. And since then, it's sort of, made me work. It makes you work harder and think, actually, I might be able to make a living out of this.
Yeah. That's because I think I must have met you 2000, maybe 15.
Yeah.
At one of those suburban gigs we were doing, something maybe around Footscray.
Okay.
Over there.
Yeah.
I remember. I remember it was weird because the stage had potted plants on the stage behind us, and you started by making a lot of fun of the setup. And I was like, this guy's good.
I wonder what that was.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think it's around anymore.
Was it really dark? Really dark. Wasn't it in Fitzroy, was it?
No, it wasn't in Fitzroy. It was over near the dock, because it was out.
Oh, right.
Out over near that docks sort of area, I think.
Okay.
My Melbourne geography's failing me here. But it was. That is
Footscray over there.
Yeah. It was a fun gig, but I remember having to work out how I was going to get there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because it was a bit of a. Actually, there might have even been earlier than that. It might have been. because I think I was down there on a family holiday maybe, and I just was doing
Leave
a couple
family,
of gigs
yeah.
while I was there.
Yeah.
Because that's what my first ever gig in Melbourne was at Dave O'Neill's Comedy Funhouse.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so. Talk about that thing of all of a sudden you get TV people. It's like a Wednesday night. And I'm
Yeah.
there with Limo and him and Glenn Robbins.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, this is Melbourne comedy,
Yeah.
is it? Holy shit! It's a good similar thing. I think I've been going, like probably at that stage 4 or 5 years, but it was
Yeah, I walked
very
out.
different.
It was probably about 2017, 2018. And I got to Dave O'Neill's Funhouse. And I knew Dave, I got to know him reasonably well. And he goes, oh, you just sit out the back. Carl's out there already. And I'm like, oh, Carl, it's, cool. I'll just go out there. And it's Carl Barron's just sitting there. And I was like, what the? And, I just, I knew he'd just done some stuff with the State of Origin Queensland team. So I just talked footy. And, I was just, like, spitting out, though. Afterwards, I was like, holy shit. Like,
well, he's rare, too, because you never see him anywhere.
No, I've not. That was the only one time I've seen him.
Yeah.
At a gig.
I think you're one of maybe 3 people I know who's got a story of seeing him at a gig, which is crazy because he's been around so long and it's so good. But so now touring around, like you're in Sydney now doing your show tonight, which no one can buy tickets to because by the time this is out, it'll have gone. Actually, this will probably come out Monday. So where's next after? Because obviously Newcastle, they've just missed that.
Yeah. So in August, I'm off to like Ballarat and down to Tassie, Hobart, and Lonnie, and then and then September sort of ramps. So I've got like Albury, Brisbane, Darwin, Traralgon. There's one other I can't think of, but it sort of ramps up September, and then I've sort of wraps up. I'm doing about 18 shows.
Oh, lovely.
Around the joint, and then I've probably tomorrow will be 5 in, and then about 13 to go. So
it's good
if you
to
live in Ballarat, August 12.
Ballarat, August 12. Get around that.
Yeah.
Now, because I always see because you do this. You've done this a few years.
I tried to do it like 20. One of the lockdown years, like when we thought we were out, and it sort of got a bit ruined. And then I did pretty much all last year. I got to do about 16 of 17 tour shows. I just always, because you write a new show. I've always done the comedy festival. Yeah. So I did like a Canberra show in 2009 when I just started. The Canberra show was 2009, then 20. I've lost count of the days now. Maybe 2010 I did the Canberra show. 2011 I did Comedy Zone, and then since then every year I've done a solo. So I got in this routine of you sort of write a new show from maybe June until January the following year, and then you start in Perth Fringe, Adelaide Fringe, Melbourne Comedy Festival, Sydney, and by May you're kind of done with this new show. So you do your show 40 times, and then that's it. You start writing a new one again. I was like, I
don't feel like you're done with it.
Yeah. Like you get to 40 and the show feels great, and then you just stop. And they're 55-minute shows where club spots are always half an hour, and a festival show is slightly different to a club spot because you can do a few longer stories, and people are there for, you can do a bit of a through line and whatnot. And I probably get about 20 minutes of club material out of a show every year. But I was just, for years I was like, why don't I, I've got to start touring. But I think a lot of people don't do it in Australia because it's, I don't know. I actually don't know why. A lot of, like, obviously all the old legends do, like your Jim Owens and Carl, and those guys have been touring for a long time. But I just think there's a real market there. Like, I love going to, say, in Victoria the other week I went to Euroa on the train.
How could Euroa?
Yeah.
I haven't thought of Euroa in years.
Yeah. A mate's got a restaurant there, and he's like, why don't you come and do your show here? We'll do a dinner and a show thing. I got the train up Friday night, cost like $12 return on the train. Got a little motel, did my show to like 55 people, and then just got the train home the next day. I was like, well, I can't believe more people don't do this. Like, it's awesome. Yeah, so I just was really keen to do the show another 20 times. And start taking it to regional areas and to everywhere, and then just try and do that every 1 year for a few years, and then push it out to 2 years. And hopefully numbers increase, mailing list builds up, and I'm doing like this little theatrettes in entertainment centres at the moment that are sort of 150 to 200 in size, and then try and move up to the 5, 6, 800 seaters in the years to come. Is kind of the idea, but see how we go.
Mate, it's and one of those things that sort of I remember last year I saw you post on all your dates and where you're going, and I had that same thing. I'm like, why don't people do this?
Yeah.
This is great.
So many comics. After I posted that first one last year, I got so many messages and just chatting to friends at gigs, just like, who put that together for you? And I was like, I did. Like, I just, what do you mean?
It's that.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes I think that's what in life in general. But once you see something can be done, people are like, oh, we can do that.
Yeah.
Whereas you were the first one to go, why couldn't we do that?
I'm sure plenty of people have done it, but I think it was because it was post lockdown and no one had toured for a while, and people saw that and were like, let's get into it. And I know a lot of mates now are like starting to do it a bit more.
It's also cool because you're going to places too, like your Albury's, like your Roa, that people don't think to go to, but there's comedy fans everywhere now.
Oh, 100%. Like, and those big, like the guys I mentioned, like Kitty Flanagan's and Carl Barron, Jimmo and Akmal, those names, they've been touring the regional areas for years and years. So there is a lot of comedy fans out there. You just got to go make the effort to get out there. And it's not like...
Well, you're a country boy at heart.
Yeah. Like the theatre, and the theatres are so welcoming. The your Albury entertainment centres and things like that. Because they've got the little spaces in as well as the big rooms, and they love having people, and they're really helpful with organising it. And you see, you'll go to the venue and you'll see the tech or the front of house staff. You're like, oh, have you had much comedy through lately? And they're like, oh, we had someone 3 months ago. You're like, what? Yeah. I went to Port Hedland a couple of years ago I was up there for Comedy Festival Roadshow.
Yep.
And I said to the Port Hedland is obviously mining. It's very, and they've built this amazing theatre, purpose-built for the town to have bigger events in there. And it's the most beautiful. I think it's about 500 or 600 seater.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, for comedy, it is perfect. It's just state of the art. And I said, who's been up here for... And it is up the top of Australia, I get it.
Yeah, it's a hike.
They'd had 3 comedians, and it was all the big names, in like 18 months. He said, when we put a show on, any sort of... it just sells because people want something to do. There's heaps of miners and families and things here. Oh, it just blows my mind that nobody's going up there. Mate,
that is...
So, yeah, if you want to do a show in Port Hedland...
don't get any ideas, all right? This is Connell's thing. Port Hedland, I got to say, like when I saw that, I was like, had that thing of like, why don't I ever think to do that sort of stuff? But also, like, I was happy for you because I'm like, I obviously worked together a number of times. I enjoy your comedy. I'm like, this is like watching, knowing you do a new show every year. It does, like, it always feels to me like at the end of a year when you've, like you said, you've done the show 40 times, you're watching people that you put so much work into it. It's like, man, why wouldn't you want to keep doing it for a bit? And why don't you want more people to know about you?
And by the time you get to the regional areas later in the year, the show is so polished and great. So it's, if you find people that like you, they're going to come back again the next time. And I think people have this thing where I think, if I'm only going to get 60 in this little town, then it's not worth going. But you got to start somewhere. You got to start low and build it up. And if 60 people are coming to see you in a town, that's great.
Mate, so now I'm feeling lazy. Right? Okay. No, but this is good. I think you're right. Like, I don't know why more of us don't do it.
Yeah.
But and that's kind of, that's one of the things I like about you is you've always had that thing of like, just do, like, why wouldn't I give it a crack? See how it goes. Like, what's the worst that happens?
Yeah.
Which is I think, especially in an industry like this, that's the way you sort of got to be. Yeah.
There's no point worrying about or waiting for someone else to do something, or worrying about what other people are doing, or thinking you can't do it. Like, you just...
You know what's happening now is there's going to be a bunch of brand new comics who see this and just be like, well, let's start an open mic tour.
yeah. Well, it could work. It'd be people might come and not.
I think too, though, people. I think you because of the way you're very understated. You're probably not. You're underselling the amount of work that goes into putting something like this together and actually getting it going.
Yeah, I generally, when comedy festivals on in Melbourne, because I know my show's right and I'm just performing overnight, I'll start putting the tour together and I'll just basically email the thing. Obviously, what I found is having like clips of like gala clips and things like that has helped to get an instant reply from them. Like it's that
sense of legitimacy.
Just nice footage. If you've got any sort of nice footage of yourself, that obviously helps. And then you just go from there. You pay your deposits, and there is a bit of like with the marketing and you got to send off all your images and all that stuff. Which, just years of doing it, And I've had friends help me with the producing at festival times a few years here and there. But I've got all those files. I've got all the images and. So it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Like
the work's done.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it. So, which is probably another thing. Like you've spent all that money on getting, and you've spent all that time and effort getting those images together, getting all the marketing stuff. Anyway, you may as well. Once again, keep using that.
Yeah, and you can keep and then just trying to keep costs down. Like try and stay with a friend or family in the place you're going to, or get a train up where you can,
$12 train.
Yeah,
how good.
Yeah. I stayed in like the Jolly Swagman Motor Inn in Euroa, which was like $110 for the night. Like it's perfect. Yeah, it's doable.
That's the thing too. Is like when it is you and you're keeping the I'll often. I was down in Melbourne during festival this year, and I was talking to Karen about going down there, who's here at A-List, and I said, oh, look, I've found somewhere to stay. And she goes, oh, is it all right? I said, I don't. It's just somewhere, as long as the door locks, the bathroom works, and I can sleep on the bed. Yeah. That's all I don't want to spend a whole lot of time there anyway. If I'm down there to work, I should be out working. Yeah. Yeah. So you don't really need that much when you're just there. If you look at it like I'm just here to work, then that's sort of much easier to justify a less fancy joint.
I wonder though, say you just blew up and like started playing arenas and stuff, if you'd still have that same.
No, probably the margins had changed, to be honest. But you know what? Like you said, you start somewhere. You stay realistic, and you can be. You can do this, and part of it's part of that. There seems there's a bit of a romance to doing it the way you're doing it too at the moment.
Yeah, I do love a country motel. Yeah, there's something about the
sachets of coffee.
Yeah, the Kookaburra biscuits. And the brick wall inside. Yes. There's something about it. I do love it.
And they've all got that same sort of style of bedspread.
Yeah.
That's there. But and that's do you reckon though? So say when you do blow up and you're playing the big theatres and that sort of stuff, and you're not having to organise it all yourself. You got your tour manager, you got your opening act with you. Do you reckon you'll look back nostalgically at this time when you were?
It's hard to say because I really
at the moment you're in it.
Yeah. I guess I would look back at it nostalgically, but I'm really one not to. I hate thinking like that. Really? I hate like thinking. I'm just in today and in what's happening now. Yeah, it'd be nice to play in a bigger theatre, 800 people or whatever. But and I'm sure if I got to that, I would look back at it nostalgically.
Because do you have, and lots of people do it. Do you have that thing where when you're first starting out, when you're telling jokes about fucking someone with your foot? Do you look back nostalgically at that? Like, because at the time, there's a bit of romance to that.
For sure, yeah.
Especially with the people you start with, where you're like, oh, we doing this shit.
Yeah.
The gigs that were shit at the time. Now you look back and go, man, that was a.
Yeah, because you realise how much you've sort of grown. Oh, sorry. Makes you realise how much you've sort of grown up and, like, like I used to say some stuff that I would never say now. Like,
Oh, go on.
that
Give
was,
us an
yeah,
example.
like not like doing voices or anything, but just like just on the line thinking that was funny, and now I just wouldn't even. I just don't think that's funny anymore. But it is funny to look back at it and think how the times, just even 13 years ago,
Yeah.
times have changed, and for the best. But yeah, I like to look back at like. I do like to look back through old joke books and see, and there's some absolute stinkers in there. They used to get laughs as well, like good laughs. I was like, God, I can't believe that was
I remember,
funny.
yeah, because you've done a bit of cruise ship work and that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
The first time I did a carnival ship, because you got to have the 5 half hours.
Yeah.
And you just sat down. I just sat down and wrote out every joke I'd ever told. And then there was some of that where I'm like, and I was listening to old recordings because I always record on my phone. So I'm listening to it and like, writing down jokes. And then there was stuff too that I'd hear and I'd go, oh, that got a laugh.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do that anymore. And it wasn't that it even necessarily like the crowd on the ship wouldn't, like,
Yeah.
it wasn't that it might not get a laugh. It's like, I don't feel like I'm the person that can say that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, the cruises there are a little bit, like even 2023 cruises, it's like 2018 materials flying out there, you know?
Yeah, you can sort of get away with a little bit more because of the ocean air
Yeah.
and the,
something in the air
and
out
the
there.
drinks package.
Yeah.
that they're all on, I think,
Yeah.
is half the key there. But it's yeah, it is. Like, the other thing I realised then is, like, when I wrote everything out, I reckon there's maybe 5 different themes I write around.
Yeah, right.
Like, if I just break it down, I go, oh, that's my marriage material. I
Yeah.
can do an hour on that. That's
Yeah.
my stuff about having kids. I can do
Kids,
an hour
yeah,
on
yeah.
that. Like, this,
Yeah.
here's me not coping with the world changing. That's that theme. It's so have you got those themes?
Yeah, I find I often write a lot about. I've got a little, because I've got like a wife and a child. I write a little bit about that, a little bit about my son, but I still writing a lot about animals. A lot of animal stuff creeps in, or insects, or some sort of animal fact, or that always creeps in.
You're
my
good
stuff.
for I learnt this.
Yeah.
I always like your I learnt this
Yeah.
because it's always something I didn't know.
I saw this doco, or I've noticed the last few, like what's just stressing me out, what's making me older.
Yeah.
Is a lead into a lot of little sections. So I would like to write something different next year. Yeah. But it's just funny, like so I always put notes in my phone. If I see something or hear something, I'll put it in my phone to work on later. And have you done phone hacks before with the Phone Hacks podcast? So they'll go through notes on your phone to see and some of the shit that they've read out on there that I've written in my phone is, it's so bizarre. I don't even know what I was thinking of at the time. I can't remember writing it.
I've done that plenty too, because I do the same thing in my just in the notes, and you look back sometimes and you go, "What? I don't know. Who wrote that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that means."
It's like that great Seinfeld episode where he wakes up and he scrawled something in his sleep and he just can't
work out what it is.
He knows it's cold, but he.
Oh, that's I've had that. I've had that thing too, where in the middle of the night you have a thought and you write it down. And it's like, must be in that half dazed sleep. Like, a few times I've been convinced, well, that's it. That's the career making bit.
Yeah, you put your head back on your pillow like that is. Yeah, can't wait to wake up to that in the morning.
I'm going to sleep well because money's rolling in as of tomorrow. And then you wake up in the morning, you just go, that doesn't. No, that's not.
Yeah, bats are flying through the what?
Oh, that's I find that like I try and make the notes and that sort of stuff, and you just change. But I think that's part of finding. That's when they talk about finding your voice. It's those things that you do sort of write about, and But
my dad gets a lot of. My dad gets a mention a bit, and I've purposely done it over the last sort of decade. If you've come to see me every year of a comedy festival, that you will be up to date with what my dad's up to, sort of thing. Like I've tried to keep that. Not a great deal. Yeah,
He's got
maybe even only a minute or 2 minutes in a 55-minute show, but just he's like this ongoing.
I feel like you have a very Oh, mate, it's almost a very specific cadence. When I think of your voice, the word uncle, the way you say uncle, because you've got a few bits where you refer to because we're talking about your extended family that I've enjoyed over the years, where you talk about Uncle. I forget which
Uncle Chris.
Uncle Chris.
It's Uncle Chris. Yeah. Arnie's get a few.
Yeah.
Auntie Jane gets a mention.
There's something funny too for me because you watching a grown man still call in your stories, you're still calling him Auntie and Uncle. Yeah. And it's one of those things I find very endearing.
Yeah. I still call my uncles that, just as a, I always say uncle like I'm a child, say it to them to stir them up. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're sitting at the kids' table.
Yeah.
That's obviously. How long have you been married now?
2020. 2019.
2019.
Cut that out. 2019.
You got in just before the
child 2020.
Yeah.
Married 2019.
Oh man! So you would have had done all those lockdown with a fairly young child.
Our child was born, and there was one COVID case in Australia.
Oh wow!
In the hospital that we were supposed to have him in, but the hospital was full the day, and we got moved out to a different hospital. But yeah, one COVID case. So and the COVID case was in a confined bubble at the hospital. It was this big news.
Back when they treated it like contagion.
Yeah. And then obviously it got out. Did you know that it got out?
Did it?
Yeah. It snuck through.
I taped all the news from back then. I'm just going through it. I'm just up to.
Yeah. So So the silver linings. I got to spend his whole first 18 months of his life. I didn't go away or anything We spent we went out to my wife's parents' house for months on end and just lied around, and there's parts of that time that really good memories, but obviously we didn't know if the world was ending. But
no, I was actually thinking about that just this morning because a mate of mine who who had never had COVID just sent me a text message this morning saying I'm mortal. And I just sent back COVID, and he sent the picture of a rat test.
Oh,
and I'm
shit.
like, wow, this is.
Yeah.
And luckily, I haven't seen him in a couple of weeks, so I'm
done
good.
well to get through to.
I know
3.5 years later.
Yeah, I was like, dude, that's so 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
everyone was doing
the amount of handles he would have touched with it on it, and
I know.
not get it till now.
And he ended up getting it from, I think it's from his daughter's come home with it from school.
Oh,
so
right.
The old classic.
Yeah,
I'm surprised they even thought.
Did you
to
get
test.
it more than once?
No, I just got it the once.
Same.
I got it. My story is I tell people, and it's probably slander. I tell people Jeff Thompson gave it to me. One of Australia's greatest ever fast bowlers. If you're not a cricket fan,
bounced you with a bit of COVID,
mate. Yeah, well, I did a gig in Darwin. Actually, it must have been this time last year. Yeah, last year. So I did a gig in Darwin up there, and he was the other. He was it was like a lunch thing, and he was the other guest speaker, and did the gig, and then I went out. Because it's afternoon gig, and we're at the casino. We're staying at the casino there at Mindle Beach. Beautiful. Yeah. And beautiful afternoon too. Leaving Sydney winter to go up, and all of a sudden it's 35 degrees.
Yeah.
So, but I'd never been to Darwin, so I thought a few of the guys. I ended up doing 2 little gigs, and a few of the guys were like, "Come have a beer with us." So I went and had a couple of beers and just had a bit of a chat with some of the punters, and then went, I could either stand here all afternoon and talk to people I don't really know, or I can go have a look at Darwin. So I got out and went around, and then I come back in about 9 o'clock that night, get a nice Chinese feed at the restaurant there. But as I'm walking out about 9:30 after my dinner, Tomo's still standing in the exact same place, surrounded, just holding court with beers. So the next morning I go down for breakfast for the flight back, and the waiter takes me out to the little balcony there where you have breakfast, and he puts me at the table right behind where Tomo's sitting. And it was one of those moments where, as a kid, growing up loving cricket, Jeff Thompson. He says good morning to me. I'm like, that's great. And then he kept turning around to say different things. And I said, do you want me to? He goes, yeah, come over, mate. Let's have it. Let's actually talk. So I sat down. I had breakfast with Jeff Thompson.
Wow.
Just chatting shit. It was great. And then got on a flight home, and the next morning woke up with COVID.
You'd gladly take it off someone like that. That's who if you want to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to get it off a school, your kid coming home from school, you want to get it off
a legend.
One of your childhood heroes.
Exactly.
Like if Joey Johns gave it to me, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a story to tell at that point too.
Yeah.
And it's because it's the sort of thing too, because it takes, takes you being inside a social distance. It implies a level of time and intimacy.
Yeah,
He didn't just walk past and go, "G'day, Barnett." He said, "Come have breakfast with me." You know what I mean? We sat across and as he buttered his toast and he hucked up. I thought he was just a bit hungover because he'd been drinking. He's like, yeah. I'm like, it turns out spicy cough. Anyway, or I might have given it to him if I was already infected. Who knows?
Maybe.
But,
it was a wild couple of years for everyone. Did you? I thought I'd created, because we came out of in and out of COVID a couple of times, but late 2020.
Well, Melbourne especially, you guys.
Yeah, we're copping it down there.
Right.
Late 2020, they did a thing where you could have. We were still in you could go out again. Comedy wasn't back. No live entertainment was allowed, and it looked like it was going to be a good 6 months. So Festival 2020 didn't happen. Sort of mid 2020, it was like August 2020, and we were right in it. But you could have 20 people at your house.
Oh yeah.
So I created this thing where I would do a show. I'd do my festival show in your living room for $25 a head. Get between 10 and 20 people, and I'd just bring I got sound, my own microphone, bring it around and do it. And I booked in 9. In the space of 2 days, all these people were like, yeah, come to our house. This is a great idea. And then I thought, another good idea would be, I could do a lineup show as well for a bit more money.
Yeah.
And I'd take 2 mates with me. So I put that out as well, and I had bookings for that. And I did 2, a Friday night and a Saturday night in people's homes. Just drove out to the burbs in Melbourne. 20 people, just awesome. Having a barbecue, friends over.
And at that stage too, now, if I said to you, hey, I've got a gig for you, you're going to go do a gig at a barbecue someone's having in their backyard.
To
now,
20 people.
That would sound horrendous.
Yeah.
But at the time, everyone was so keen to get back to normal stuff. And the vibe would have been amazing.
It was unbelievable. It was both these gigs, and I came back to my wife the next night with $500 cash each night. Oh. And I said, I think I've just cracked.
Which he declared ATO.
Of course.
The ATO.
Straight onto declared. And I said, I think I've cracked the code here. The more bookings are going to come. I think, this could be a winner for the next 6 months. And we did one of the lineup shows at my in-laws' house. They had one. Got Tom Seagate, Geraldine Hickey. The 3 of us did our show.
Oh, nice. That's a good lineup show too.
A barbecue as well. It was a Saturday afternoon. And they were like, mate, this is awesome. How good. A bit of cash, barbecue, back doing a gig, get that feeling again. And we go in, and there was a 4:00 press conference, and Dan Andrews got up and said, we'll now be changing from 20 people to 5.
Oh, Dictator Dan.
Yeah. So I had to call 14 people that I'd booked all this different stuff in with and say, it's not happening.
He just kept taking away,
yeah,
didn't he?
Just kept. And then we did Festival 2021. I think we came back 2021. Yeah. Maybe we didn't.
No, it was 2021.
We did, yeah.
Think, yeah.
It was 2021 was. We started the festival, and you could have 75% of capacity.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the festival, it was 100% capacity. Yeah.
I must have done 2022.
You did, yeah, 2022, yeah.
And that was, I remember saying to people up here, it felt like this city I was dealing with a rescue puppy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They wanted you to be kind to them, but they were still scared.
Yeah.
It was that was such a weird vibe, because that was the first year I think you guys, because going into that Easter holidays, it was the first time people could go on an actual holiday again and do that. So no one wanted to risk getting COVID, because you still had to isolate. I think when that festival started, I think you still had to isolate 7 days if you got it.
Yeah.
So people were like, well, I'm not risking this and ruining the first holiday we've had in 2 years.
No,
and it was a real weird sort of a vibe around the city.
But and then like just all 2022 from after that, because people had been starved of things for so long, they came out in droves. Like the comedy clubs for the rest of last year, 2022, was just pumping, and my tour went pretty good, and people were just like going for it. Christmas last year was amazing, lots of things. But then this year's festival, I feel like people had gone so hard for 8 months after not having anything, and with the financial crisis and everything, it was a bit quieter. Like we had this hangover of and even they're saying now people have buyer fatigue. Like a lot of venues and clubs and things are getting, say they're getting 100 to their shows. They're only sitting on 40 on the Friday for the Saturday show, but people are like just leaving it. Everything's last minute now as a result of that last few years, and people are just a bit over spending money and watching live because they just got stuck into it so hard for 8 months.
Yeah, well, that was Melbourne seemed quieter this year, and that was talking to everyone when I was down there. It was that thing of everyone's like, it's a bit of a slog this year, which is which I think it was a slog the year before too, but I think everyone thought it would be back to normal a bit more. Yeah, and especially going on how that bounce back for the back end of that year. Yeah, I think people were thinking differently, but it's funny now. Like it's weird that. Like for that period, like, you know, it was COVID was the thing. Everyone had COVID material and stuff, and it's weird now to like because I had this bit from then about Gladys Berejiklian when she lost her job, and I thought it'd last 6 months, but it's been back in the news, and like even the last week I was talking about something else, and then I sent politicians, and then I mentioned her name, and I felt the pop. I was like, I'll see if this still flies. And it was the best bit of the whole night. I'm like, how is this one COVID little bit still flying now? Yeah,
it's funny. Like it's really like the COVID material is like those, you know, those towns in the old Western where they rock up and there's just no one there and the tumbleweeds rolling through. Yeah. Like that's where the material is now. Like it feels like it's run its course and everybody's left town. But there's still a little bit. There's you see the odd comedian do a bit. I saw Tim Key at the Comedy Festival this year, so it's only like 3 months ago. His whole show was about his lockdown experience. And I went and I really like him, and I was like, oh, how's this going to go? Like, how's a Melbourne crowd going to take this? And it was awesome. It was such a good show, just looking back and like relating to so many of the things he went through. So, and I reckon in the years to come, people will do shows about that time. Like there'll be plays and things. And, you know, younger people who didn't really understand it will watch that. And there'll be films and stuff, you know, I think. Yeah. Blockbusters about that.
It's weird because I think you're right, because there was that almost like that time where everyone was doing it, and then all of a sudden audiences went, guys,
move on,
we need to talk about. So we're sick of hearing about this. We lived it for 2 years. Yeah, the initial relief of we can joke about it is gone. Yeah, now let's just think about something else.
Yeah, I had a bit in my 2022 show, like a bit of COVID stuff, and then this year I was like, I'm not going to put one word. I'm not going to mention it in the whole thing.
That was in my 2022 show, I had no intention of really doing much about it. I just had a little bit of talk, and it just kept. There's another. I just kept accidentally adding it to it, and it was all working. And I'm like, well, this. So then it turned in like the first 15 minutes was all this topical stuff, and I was like, oh, that's not going to age well. So now I've got these. I was looking at footage I took of that show, and I'm looking the first 20 minutes. I'm like, well. That'd look silly if I put it online now.
You should just do
it. See what happens.
Secretly people might still love it.
Yeah. Get the anti-vaxxers going again. That's back in the top with that. What's that? RFK Jr. in the States going on Rogan. So that's mate. It's interesting. Interesting sort of time now. I'll be interested with, especially like you said, with the financial thing, where we all go from here, because comedy sort of had a bit of a boom as well in terms of people are like there's so much of it online, so many, you know, newish faces kicking around.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what it's like in the next 20 years. I think, everything now is, there's a lot of people selling tickets off videos, successful TikTok, Instagram Reels and things. Some comics that are very new to stand-up that are touring huge arenas and things, just killing it. So it's really changed the last few years. I'm fascinated to see how it goes because I think, people are on their phones so much now and the attention span is just getting shorter and shorter for people. So festival shows are 55 minutes. I reckon in about 10 years they'll be half an hour. Yeah. Because that'll be what people can sit down for
before they want to swipe to the next thing.
But with like all the AI stuff coming in, and that's one thing, because obviously I've chosen this as my career and I want to make my money and support my family off this. Exactly. But I think one thing that makes me feel all right about it going forward is that I think humans will always want to go and watch live performance. And the more that AI comes in and the more that TikTok and all this and attention spans get shorter, people will push back to that old way of like, let's go see something live, because it's still the one real sort of live.
Well, and that's the thing.
And music,
like even with all the amount of specials and stuff that are out there, like the amount of times I've tried to explain to people who basically consume most of their comedy, mates and that, who consume most of it through specials. I'm like they'll be like, hey, it was all right. Like, yeah, but if you were in the room that night, it would have felt electric. Like, it just doesn't. Stand-up's one of those things, like, even the best special is probably 10% of the feeling it was in the room in terms of how many times you'd laugh out loud if you were there and that sort of stuff.
Because when you're there, you're not distracted by anything else.
No.
You're in the moment. You've probably had a couple of drinks. When you're just watching it on a Monday night after work, your phone buzzes, you probably check your phone and miss miss a minute or two and then come back to it. It's I feel confident though that stand up for us, is going to be something that people still go and watch live for a long time.
I hope so, and it's funny that, like, talking about how quickly topics and that have moved on. I was thinking about that this morning too. I flicked on the radio, and I was listening. I'm one of the people who bought a digital radio. I don't know if you across digital radio that was going to be the thing that sort of just came and went.
Yeah.
I think me and 7 other people own them. But there's like a lot of the stations have got like, so there was Triple M had a 90s station, which I loved because I was like, now they've changed that to the 2000s station.
Yeah.
Like, which made me go, and then I was listening to that Ben Lee song came on about
Catch My Disease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that came, and the bit in it where he talks about, they don't play me on the radio.
Oh,
I hear this on the radio. He goes, I hear Sleepy Jackson on the radio.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't thought about Sleepy Jackson for how long? And then I'm like, they were big for a minute.
Because Sleepy Jackson was Luke from Connell, right?
Yeah.
No, is that?
No, he was
Connell, and he and Connell got together, didn't they? That Walking on a Dream, that's Sleepy Jackson, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Same lead singer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was it was one of those ones, like, I'm like, oh man,
I'm going to Google it.
You're still getting played on the radio, Ben Lee. What are you whinging at? It comes off too after 10 years. It does come off a little like bitchy. Yeah. Like, I don't get played on the radio. Man, you're the only one of these people, apart from Beyonce, who still gets a bit of a radio.
She gets a little bit of time still.
But it was one of those bizarre things. So Sleepy Jackson.
I couldn't name a Sleepy Jackson song, actually. I do remember.
But they were like a cultural moment. Like, Sleepy. They were one of those cool bands that came and...
Yeah, Luke Steele.
So, supergroup, or are we calling them a supergroup?
I don't think so. Just inspired by... Hang on. Let's have a really... You've got...
Here we go.
It's now the Sleepy Jackson podcast. Yeah, so Luke Steele,
lead singer,
with brother Jesse.
Yep.
Oh, hang on. 4 members of Sleepy Jackson. Sister Katie Steele. Oh, from Little Birdie.
That's I knew there was a little, like, there was another, yeah.
Yeah, so then he is also those guys. What are they called again? Empire of the Sun.
So Empire of the Sun, Little Birdie, combined, Sleepy Jackson.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Empire of the Sun and Sleepy Jackson, same lead singer.
Right.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that too. The super group phenomenon. You know, where you get bands that come together and you're like,
never works out well, does it?
But
probably Travelling Wilburys, one exception. Two great albums.
Two great songs, really, that anyone remembers.
True. The albums to listen to one to end are both pretty great.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
But
there's only probably two songs.
When you consider
that were hits,
the level that they have in that group.
Yeah.
You're Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison,
George Harrison.
And who was the...
Yeah. What did you say already? Bob Dylan.
Orbison,
Dylan, Tom Petty. George Harrison.
There was
from ELO.
Yeah, what's his name?
His name is...
He's the one I always forget.
God, how do I not know that? Grew up listening to those guys.
Yeah, I know.
His name is ELO. Oh.
But what the point still being is the number of albums and hits between those guys that they all had in their other projects.
Yeah.
They come together. This should be... Like, if it was as big as the sum of its parts, this should be the greatest music factory anyone's ever seen, and it was there.
Yeah,
it was fun. Like those two hits are amazing, and like you said, the album's good, but it's not like...
Well, it's like when you get a footy team and they're just full of stars. It just never works.
It's the Roosters at the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The Roosters are the Travelling Wilburys.
There we go. I think we've solved rugby league.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, mate, I think we're about...
Jeff Lynne, by the way.
Jeff Lynne.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you'd get there.
Yeah.
All right, well, now no one has to do any Googling about Sleepy Jackson or Travelling Wilburys. Mate, before we go, where can people find you to find out what you're up to, all that sort of
stuff?
stuff?
I'm on all the different social media. If you just look up Daniel Connell Comedy, you'll find me on pretty much everything, from your TikToks to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I've got 2 specials out on YouTube that you can watch in full. Last year's show, Gutless Wonders, up there. Been up there for about 6 or 7 months, and I've just put one up in the last fortnight. It's just kind of a mix of old material called Live at the NMI that's free to watch on YouTube.
Is that the one where the background's sort of pine?
Pine, yeah.
Where is that?
So that's in the Newham Mechanics Institute. So Newham's in the Macedon Ranges, about an hour and a half out of Melbourne. And I did a gig there 2019 for a mate, and I just was like, I've got to remember this place. This is where I'll film something one day.
It's really nice, distinct look. It looks really good. Like, that one's one of those ones that, you see something and you go, that popped.
Yeah, we probably could have, in hindsight, probably could have done a bit more with the stage, but I just like the simplicity of it, and country boy back in the country,
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, fit well. And then I'm on tour at the moment as well, so if you want to come to, just check out danielconnell.com.au or alist.com.
I can't recommend that highly enough. So get around Daniel, go see him wherever he comes. And good news, if you're in a small country town that has a jolly swagman, he's coming your way. Mate, thanks very much for doing that.
Kookaburra biscuits ready, that's all I'll say.
Kookaburra biscuits.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for having me.